Hi everyone, it's Evelyn. And last week we went over my new bouquet making station, which I changed specifically so that I could show you how I make bouquets, which is what we're going to do today. My peonies are starting to come on a little bit stronger than they were last week, and I've come up with a recipe that I really like. Now I'm still not getting a lot per day, as you just handed me the ball. So the recipe I'm going to do includes 2 peonies for this bouquet, and I'll go through each stem that I'm going to use. I don't have any of my medium-sized alliums right now, but I do have some of my larger ones. So I'm going to use one of these, although I prefer to use the smaller ones. And I'm going to go and use whatever this peony is. I can't remember the name. I'll put it up on the screen. I have not learned the names of my peonies yet, but I am going to just break off the leaves because peonies don't have an incredibly long buzz life. I can get up to about a week on them. But every time you leave more leaves on them, that saps energy away from the actual flower, which shortens its buzz life. So I'm going to take 2 peonies out, and I'm going to use whatever this one is because it's a different color, just slightly different. We're going to do the same thing. That one just snapped off on its own. That was a bud. I'm going to break off these leaves so that it's mostly just the stem. I'm going to use 2 rhododendrons as well. I'm going to see if I can get away with just this one stem because it has 2 rhododendrons on it. I'm going to use 1 stem of the pine, is it pine crest? Pine something. I'll put it on the screen. I'll get the names right one day. Maple leaves, oops. Cut that weird stem off there. Cut this little side stem off there. And just use that amount. I'm going to use some of these cherry branches. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take off this long piece of stem and turn this into 2. And strip off the lower leaves. This one doesn't have much excitement on it on this little piece. I think I'm going to grab a bit more. What else have I got in here? They're all tangled up. Okay, here, yeah, so we've got, I can use this one, and potentially that one. So that'll give you plenty of those. I'm going to use 1 stem of the long-needled pine, and then that's my foliage. I'm also going to use 1 stem of my kale flowers. So one of the things that I know for my recipe is that I want this allium to come up through the center. I'll put the name of what this one is, but as you can see, that's got a nice big head on it. And actually I'll walk closer so you can see how big it is in real life compared to like my hand here. It's quite a big head. So generally a bit bigger than I want to choose, but I don't have any of the smaller ones available right now. And for my recipe, I do put one of these up the center. The next thing I do is get my beautiful lime-colored maple leaves and put it so that it's in the center of the bouquet. Then I'm going to grab my branch of rhododendrons that I want to use 2 of in the bouquet, and I'm going to try and set this up so that there's one. Can I set it up so that there's one on either side of the bouquet? Problem is they're both facing the same way. Well, maybe not, so maybe I won't use this one. Let's see what it's like. Cut a few. Same this recipe, I want to do it the way I do my recipe. Okay, we're going to use this one as a single. I'm going to peel off any leaves that don't look good. Oops. Because on the rhododendron, there's always leaves that don't look good. Okay, I'm gonna leave that little small one that hasn't really opened up. Put that off to one side. Then I'm going to grab, these all have more than one of them, which is pretty cool. I'm going to grab this other one that has two. It'll just be a bonus flower on there. I don't like the length of that stem. Let's use this one. This has too much stem on it, so I'm just going to cut some of the stem off now. And then I'm going to cut off this little piece of leaf. And put that on the other side. I don't like this on here just because of the way it pokes out to the side, and I don't need it, so I'm going to cut that off. There, so now I have rhododendrons on both sides. And I'm going to put the peonies on opposite sides of the rhododendrons. And any leaves that are down by my hand, I'm just going to peel off. Oh, before I do the rhododendrons, I want to put, before I do the peonies, I'm going to take my stem of kale. I love how wonky it is, and it's because it's been growing out of my kale plant like that, sideways, with the stem coming down here. But I really love that architectural whimsy, especially with all the seed pods. It's really, really pretty. So I'm going to tuck that in here and around the allium as well. Now that gives it a little bit of really unique, whimsical interest. Now I'm going to grab these, I'm going to put these two rhodos away. Now I'm going to grab the two peonies. So there's one, and I'm going to put it opposite. Oops, I want to make sure this allium is in the center, and the rhodos are on opposite sides. Until they're tied, you can keep rearranging everything a bit. I'm going to put one, the bigger peony here, nice beautiful pale pink one. I'm going to put in between the rhodos on that side. And then I'm going to spin it around and put this deeper pink, more of a rose color on this side. So we now have, this rhodos slip. That's the thing with rhodos, because they're so wonky, it's hard to get them exactly where you want them. But that's slipped. Now I'm going to put this one here, and I'm going to do as much crossing of the stems as I can. It's hard to do with the rhodos because of the wonky stems, but I can certainly do it with the peonies. So that's how that looks. I'm then going to tuck in some of these maple branches just for the darkness of that leaf. So I'm going to put one in on that side, just anywhere where I think there looks like there might be a little lack of interest in the bouquet. Okay, so I think I'm done with that. This piece of the kale is bent, so I'm actually going to cut that out of there. I don't want a bent piece of kale. Pull that out there. So I've got the burgundy leaves in there now, which I really, really like. Got one more branch, I'm just going to use it and tuck it in there. And then one more thing. I'm going to use my long needle pine. And I'm going to find this, because of the curved stem, it has to go low. So I'm going to find any spot that I don't like how it looks, and that would be right there. And I'm going to tuck it in there for really cool interest. Now this little piece of the thing, again, I'm just going to peel that off. There's no leaves below my hand, so that's perfect. I'm now going to grab a piece of twine. Then I have cut the size. I'll tell you the measurement. I'll measure one after I get this bouquet put together. So I'm going to walk closer to you now so that you can see how I tie this. So here's the bouquet. Here's my twine. I'm folding it in half. You know what this twine is? This twine is actually the twine that I used to corral all my dahlias. I cut the twine away at the end of the season when I'm digging up the dahlias, and I save it and I use it for my bouquets the following season. So I've got my hands here. I've got the twine. I'm going to put it on the outside of my hand, reach across, hold it with my thumb, so the loop is now in my thumb. I'm going to go behind it, grab the two ends. I've just got it between my two fingers here right now, and I'm going to reach through the loop and pull it tight. And then that's one way to keep the bouquet in exactly the position you want it before you put the wrap on it. Now the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tie, I should have done this when I was closer to. I'm going to tie just a little bow. My wheelbarrow is here, I'm going to put my foot upon it. Just a little bow, can you see that? With the twine, so that it's got a nice little bow knot on it, which is easy to undo and holds it together. Now, I'm going to grab my handy dandy pruners that I've had for years, which just came from a local hardware store. I'm going to use the scissors for the stem of the alien. I'm looking for the shortest stem, which is this one here. I'm going to cut it there. I can't cut that one. So most of this is woody, so I'm going to just use my really old pruners to cut everything else. Now, with your pruners, anything that's woody, cut vertically into the stem. So I'm going to cut vertically into the stem, and that will help the woody absorb more water. One of the reasons I really like using a lot of these leaf fillers is because neither the rhododendron nor the peony have exceptionally long vase life. The allium does, it has forever vase life. The leaves that I'm using for filler, peel that leaf off because it's got a lot of holes in it, last for a long time too. So once the peonies and the rhododendrons have finished, you still have really cool foliage in here, plus the allium head, and as well as the kale flowers, which will last up to a couple of weeks. I've tested them out. And that means that even though the peonies and the rhododendrons have finished, you still get beautiful interest in the bouquet for quite a long time to come. And with the popularity of just using branches in vases, this kind of takes that popularity into account while still adding in the beauty of the rhododendrons, the allium, and the peonies. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab one of my pre-sized wraps. Because I have so much interest down at the bottom, I am not putting a wrap that comes out to the sides. It doesn't need it. I consider the wrap to do nothing more than protect the bottom of the bouquet as it sits in its container waiting to be purchased. So I'm just going to fold it literally in half so it's a triangle. I don't do anything fancy. I'm going to use the side that has the pine to put against it. I'm going to push things up so that there is as much out of the way as possible. So I'm starting low down at the bottom of the stem because I'm going to push it up after. And then I'm just going to grab it and crinkle it. And where these two ends are, I'm also going to grab it and just wrap it under to where I'm going to tie. So if I come close, you can see this is just a big mess. Now what I'm going to do is just push that up. And I'm going to push these ends up so they stay out of the water. And I'm going to just fold this down so it's not in the way of any blooms. Well, what I have is a really nice protection around this collar. And I'm going to grab another tie that I've cut. Exactly the same as the other tie. I'm going to fold it in half. Again, I'm going to come from behind the bouquet, bring it to the front, hold the loop with my thumb, grab behind it with my other hand, come in front of my fingers, and as I come in front of my fingers, I'm going to move my index finger out of the way and hold it so that then I can then come between the loop. And this end's a bit short, so I can pull on this one first so that I lengthen it a bit. And then pull that tight. Put my foot up on my wheelbarrow so you can see what I'm doing. And then just tie another little knot. There. So that's, just pushed my slip-off container down below. So that's the bouquet with the recipe that I'm using for putting up at my flower wagon right now. The reason I do the double tie is people love it because they love how the arrangement looks. So when they untie the paper wrap, most of my customers do not take the second piece of twine off. You don't see it because it's natural twine. It sort of blends in with the bouquet. So they leave that twine on and then put it in a vase, and it keeps the arrangement that I've made looking really, really pretty. So that's why I do the double twine tie. How do you like that? Pretty nice there. Hey, let's make another bouquet using the exact same recipe. We're going to start off with the allium. If you ever hear me say allium, I mean allium. And then we tuck the maple leaves around it. We're going to then grab the kale flowers, and I'm going to put them opposite the side, crossing my stem, of the maple flowers, so they give a bit of yellow back here because most of the maple flowers seem to be on this side. And then I'm going to grab another stem that has 2 rhododendrons on it, and I'm going to put them right in front of those maples because I find that there was a bit too much of those maple leaves on that side. I'm going to go opposite. This stem had 2 on it. I cut one away because I don't want 4 rhododendrons in my peony bouquet. So I'm going to put that there like that. I'm then going to put in some of the cherry branches to add in that beautiful, just hold my thumb out, cross it over, and then hold it with my thumb and put it back in, just to get some of that beautiful burgundy coloring happening in here. Put this one in between the 2 roses there that came together. Okay, now we're going to put in the 2 peonies in on opposite sides. Well, you got rhodos on opposite sides, and on the other 2 of the 4 quadrants, we're going to put a peony. And I think I'm going to have it so this one that's not open yet just kind of sticks out a bit on its own, not so much buried in. Same as this peony, I'm going to find the gap between, I'm using my thumb to move things around. I'm going to find the gap between the 2 stems of rhododendrons and put this peony in here. Looks like I crunched this one, but it'll fix itself out. Now I'm just going to look for any lower section that could potentially use the ponderosa pine. I'm finding that the way these things sit, this might be the spot right here. There. So this is a slightly more wacky and wild, I'm going to push that down a bit, bouquet than the last one, but it's the same recipe. It looks completely different. It has much more of a wild look to it. Okay, let's tie it. Got my tie, holding it down the center, coming in behind my hand, bringing it around to the front, holding the loop with my thumb, coming in with my other hand, bringing the other 2 ties above my fingers and around to the front as well, holding it with my index finger, reaching in between the loop, grabbing the 2 stems, pulling it tight, so tight that you can just do that. Now I'm not very good at actually tying a bouquet like this, nor do I want to, because I don't want to accidentally get the sap from the pine on my clothes. So I'm just going to now tie it as it sits lightly on the table. There we go. Get my cutters. allium first with the scissors, and cut everything else with my very old trusty pruners. One day maybe I'll try some new ones. I'm gonna cut into the stems of the woodies as best I can so that they can bring up more water. Grab my broom, get everything out of my way. Now normally I would tie it over there, but I'm not gonna, with the wrap, but I'm not going to tie it with my back to you. I'm just going to clean this off. Put this back in water. Grab a tie. It's got a little bit of an extra tear that was, I'm going to leave that on the bottom where you don't see it. Give it a nice good crease. I just noticed I've got some leaves pretty low on here, so I'm going to actually just come in here. Anything that's below the tie is potentially going to be in water, so I'm just going to pull that out while I'm looking at it. There, okay, so now I'm going to put it on the triangle. Now I'm going to keep this pretty close to the bottom. See a short stem in here. I'm just going to pull it a little longer. I'm going to keep this really close to the bottom when I wrap it, and then just push it up. So I'm just going to lightly, I'm not going to do this tight, because what I want to do is get these two ends together. Then I'm going to crunch that with my hand. I'm going to take these two ends, wrap it, and crunch it in as well, and then just push up. Crunch this up as much as I can. Because to me, the wrap is not what you're selling. You're selling the bouquet. So I want the bouquet to be as beautiful as possible. Isn't that pretty? Okay, now we need another tie. Turn it into two, come from behind my hand to the front, hold it with my thumb, reach behind, grab the two loose ends, hold it with my index finger, pull the two things through, apparently break that one, grab another one, try that again. Pull it tight. Tie it. And then I'm going to go over to my photo station. I've got this one over here. I already took a photo of this one up against the concrete board, cement board. So I'll show you what that photo looked like. Now I'm going to take, you take a bunch of photos and you take a bunch of photos and then you turn it as you take photos until you find the photo that you like the best. And here's the two that I have ready to go up to the roadside flower wagon as soon as the one that's up there sells. So here's the two bouquets in a bucket, and what I'm going to do is, these are not the first peony bouquets I've made for the roadside flower wagon. I'm just going to do a little cycle through of the bouquets that I've made up to this point, and including these two, so that you can see these two are the only, these two and the one before these two are the ones that are following that specific recipe. The ones before that, of which there was only like maybe 3, are experimenting a bit, using a bit more foliage, a little less foliage, until I came up with the recipe that I really like, which is important because then you can plow through them a lot faster. Of course, it still takes some time to go make a bouquet when I'm showing you what I'm doing, but I can make these bouquets pretty quickly, and I know exactly what I'm looking for. So I know if I've got if I cut 6 peonies, for example, I can make 3 bouquets. So then I cut 6 stems of rhododendrons as well, and three alliums, and so forth. So that's, you know, it's good to have a recipe so you know what you're doing. Now, I did a bouquet on peony bouquet making last year as well, but it's quite different because the peonies started blooming later last year, and I had other flowers blooming at the same time. For instance, my foxgloves, they're not blooming yet at all. So that's quite interesting. So those recipes are very different than the ones I'm doing now. I had far more flowers last year to choose from with the peonies. I'm much more reliant on my green fillers this year for creating a really, really interesting bouquet. Last year I relied on more flowers, such as my ranunculus, the foxgloves, and more alliums were in full bloom at that time as well. So you should really check that video out to get even more ideas for creating peony bouquets. And I'll leave that recipe, that video up here. And because this video is very much about relying on green fillers, I thought I would also leave a link to my favorite top 10 green fillers that I use throughout the growing season down below here. And I'll see you next week. Bye.